Just want to welcome everybody to USDA's Fall Data Users Meeting. My name is Joe Parsons. I serve as chair of the Agricultural Statistics Board here at NASS, and we're thrilled to have you all participate and join us for this very useful event. Hopefully useful for you to learn about our programs, and also useful for all of our agencies to get a valuable feedback and input. A little bit of housekeeping. We went through this yesterday, but we'll have closed captioning available. It should be on the ribbon down there at the bottom if you'd like that. It's always handy, and if you have to step away, it's also kind of, I find it sort of useful to be able to go back and see what's being said over the last minute or so if you do have to step away. All sessions from yesterday were recorded and are available on our YouTube channel. You can see the website there, https://www.youtube.com/USDA NASS. All of today's sessions will also be recorded. So if you miss a little piece, you want to go back and catch it, or if you have a coworker or something that you want to share this with, it'll be fully available. So the slides and the transcript of the question and answers that we'll have today, with any additional questions that we don't have time to answer, will be available on our website after the meeting. It usually takes a day or so because we often want to go back through and make sure that we fully answer a question if there's one that we set aside or we don't get to. But we will have that up pretty quickly afterwards. We try to be responsive in that manner. So really want to make sure that we have those resources and be open and transparent about what we're doing. If we do have something go sideways, haven't had that happen, knock on wood, but if we do, we will communicate with you from your registration email, probably with a new link, and get started again. So let's hope that we don't have any technical glitches, but we'll do what we can. So Versa, next slide. So many of you are quite familiar with this, but in the Q&A button that's down at the bottom there, please go ahead and get started and fill those in. We're going to answer all the questions we possibly can. And if we miss some that we don't get to, like I said, we will follow up, but that's the place to put any Q&A. If you're having a technical issue, or we'll have some links for you later on, we'll probably pop those into the chat. So you can look for the chat if we are communicating out a link, and if you are having technical trouble, either reach out to Marissa or Vincent, or you can reach out in the chat. They'll be keeping an eyeball on that. For those of you that are panelists and helping to support, if you can, you're welcome to look at the Q&A, but don't be answering them in the Q&A, please, because I want to answer them live. That way we have a number of folks that are on this call that are probably in listen only mode. And if you do that, then I won't see the question and be able to read it. So for the benefit of all participants, we'll handle it that way. So I mentioned those recordings. So yesterday you had the opportunity, and I know many of you took the opportunity to listen in to a session on the Census of Agriculture, sort of a how we do it session on that. It had some good Q&A there, or alternatively the use of weather information in producing the WASDE. And then the second session was on our historical revisions and our estimating program review that we do in conjunction with the timing of the Census of Agriculture every 5 years. And there was a good discussion there. And then the AMS visualizations. And so if you attended one and wanted to listen in on the other, those recordings are all out there. Or if you didn't get to one, didn't have the opportunity, you were busy with other things, again, those recordings are out there. And I think the transcripts as well. So, available for you. So what are we doing today? Today we're going to have an open forum. We're going to do Q&A, and we're going to do that for about an hour and 15-20 minutes. We'll take a short break, and then those breakout sessions I just identified will be available, or the breakout sessions for coming up rather at 1:30 will be available. The first, or the session A, is on the ERS feed grains database, a look at this data resource, and then session B is going to be from our friends at the Risk Management Agency. Is going to do a session on publicly available data from RMA should be a great session. So I encourage you to pick one and watch the other one on tape, as it were. I do know that we had a little bit of a glitch yesterday. I apologize for that there were a couple sessions where some folks were asked for a password. We will make sure that, and they were in the session B there, so probably this may pop back up with the risk management agency. We will make very clear that you have that code or whatever it is before we leave this today. So I think we got everybody squared away yesterday. I apologize if any of you were caught up in that, but we'll make sure that you have that before we leave today's general session. So with that, I think I want to go back and just remind you, these are our panelists from Paul Trupo from the Foreign Ag Service, Dr. Mark Jekanowski from the World Board, Mr. Tony Dorn, Acting Director for the Statistics Division here at NASS, Kelly McGuire from ERS, Tim Gravelin from the Farm Service Agency, Michael Sheets of the Ag Marketing Service, and of course, Joe DeCampo from the U.S. Census Bureau. We also have representatives with us today from the Energy Information Administration and as well as RMA. And I know that we'll have a question or two for them. I know in the audience that we have some folks from Agri-Food Canada and from Statistics Canada. And so we should have, and I should say that we have a number of folks that are supporting our panelists that have specific knowledge. Obviously, the data resources within USDA are very broad, and you all often have some very great, very specific questions, and we'll do our best to offer some answers and some insight. With that, Marissa, if you tell me I can, we'll go ahead and get started with some Q&A.
Let's get started.
All right, let's go. First question. Dr. Jewison, are you ready for this? All right. This question is from Karen Braun, and I think I heard this some sentiment of this also come up a little bit yesterday in one of the breakouts. This is for the World Board. And I don't know, Dr. Jekanowski, I don't know if you want to weigh in first. Are there any plans to revisit or recalibrate the calculation of U.S. corn trend yield ahead of the 24-25 season? National corn yield has landed below USDA's initial trend for 5 years now. Thanks.
I'll just start with simple answer. I mean, no recalibration efforts underway. Keep in mind, I mean, these trend yields are always based on expectations of normal weather, and weather conditions change over the course of the year. I think for more detail, I'll turn it over to Mike if he wants to expand on this at all.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Karen, thanks for the question. It's been coming up a lot recently. I think we could actually retitle this breakout session to U.S. trend line yield discussion. That's a joke. But the short answer is, obviously this has come up quite a bit. We've had lengthy discussions about this topic in particular. I would invite you to look at some of the transcripts, in particular the last few sessions, in terms of my public comments and my views on the trend line yield. And obviously it's always all available data, and we take it year in and year out and evaluate all available data. So thank you for the question. Okay, very good. We've got a couple questions here that were pre-submitted or that came up yesterday that we caught in the when the speakers were going through. This one is from Juan Quintero. In terms of production for other countries such as Canada, in one moment, do production numbers are aligned between WASDE and StatCan reports? So maybe at what point do production numbers, are they aligned between the WASDE and the StatCan reports? Mark?
Good question. And the main point that I wanted to get across is that for every country, in every situation, the World Board is always doing its own analyses. We're not under any, strict requirements to adopt forecasts or estimates from foreign entities. Oftentimes they do align, but sometimes they won't. If our own forecasts or efforts, analytical efforts suggest otherwise. But maybe talking about Canada in particular, maybe I'll turn it over to Joanna, who might have a little bit more perspective on that, can add some detail.
Yes, thank you, Mark. As for Canada and canola specifically, since that's what I covered, throughout the season, we take into account stats planning forecasts for the crop, and we eventually take the final crop estimates after the season is complete. During the season, we have our own field analysis by province, as well as we take into account crop underestimation by in-country estimates that have occurred over the past several seasons.
All right, thank you. Go on to the next one here. So agency update question from Mark Fight. We are looking for NASS and Lance, maybe we are looking for NASS survey field crops acreage data by state prior to 2018. References a file. Data before 2018 only includes March and the final. We're updating our database in the monthly PSD data set at PSD Online. Is the pre-18 data available, Lance?
Yeah, and obviously this question has to do with the in-season estimates that we put out. Prior to 2018, we don't have that populated yet. That's kind of one of those projects that's on the back burner. As we get to it, we're trying to get more and more years out there. But it's a very manual process for us. That's why it's not out there by state just yet. And so hopefully we'll get to that in the not too distant future. But currently it is not available out there.
All right, thank you for that, Lance. The next couple of questions are related to one another. I'm going to kind of bundle them up. So my friends at EIA, if you can, there you go. Hi, Julie. EIA Form 819, monthly reports of biofuels, fuels from non-biogenic waste, fuel oxygenates, isooctane and isooctane. In the U.S. feedstocks consumed for the production of biofuels report. Currently only SBO is used. SBA use is reported by biodiesel and RD plants. When will EIA break down canola use by plant type? What other feedstock is reported in the waste, oils, fats, and greases section? And what other feedstocks is reported under recycle feeds and waste section? Actually, the next one is probably for Joe. I'll go to that one. Okay, so I'll let you go ahead and take that, Julie.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, so the first question was regarding the canola oil, splitting out the feedstocks between the biodiesel producers and the renewable diesel producers. So you will remember that we have to check for disclosure issues before we publish that data. And we actually went back and looked, and we are able to split the canola. And we also reviewed the corn oil, and we'll be able to split that too. So in the publication that's going to be released on October 31st with data for August, we will actually go ahead and have those two feedstocks will be published by plant type. And then we're gonna, so that'll be August data. Then next summer, when we do our annual revisions, we'll review the earlier months in 2023 and disclose that data too, if we can. So for the other question, so that was also talking about feedstock. So yeah, we have, various other categories. We always put an other category so that we can capture any feedstocks that we may not have enumerated separately. If that, the industry is evolving, so sometimes new things come up that we haven't put on the form. So we don't ask the respondent to even, it's not even on the form what it is. They just type it into other. So it's, basically it's anything that we haven't separately identified on, in the table is what's in other.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go on the next question. This one's probably for Joe DeCampo. Renewable diesel doesn't have a specific HS code currently. Trade flows, imports and exports are increasing and becoming a steady flow to monitor for the industry and understanding biofuels. Will Census consider adding an HS code for renewable diesel, and maybe just talk a little bit about how one gets an HS code, Joe, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. The process for getting a new HS code or a Schedule B code is actually a very formal process. There's a committee, Census is on it, but also USITC and Customs and Border Protection. So somebody would have to submit a specific request, not only laying out why they think there should be a new number, but also where that number should be. So I guess renewable fuels would be probably in Chapter 27. So you'd have to lay out like what the new 10-digit would be and why you think it should be there. But one of the other things, you can't just create a new number. You also have to define it. You have to create statistical notes. So one hang up I could possibly see is defining the word renewable. That would have to be something that ITC and Customs can both agree upon, and to make sure that Customs can tell whether something is renewable or not. So things are in the works, but there just isn't a number yet.
Okay. Has there been a submission, Joe? Can you speak to that?
Well, perhaps my colleague from EIA could mention something about that.
Yeah, we actually have asked for it. And I feel like we maybe are actually, I don't want to be too hopeful, but it looks like maybe we're making some progress.
Okay.
But yes, so that request has been made.
The bottom line is there is process, and the process is ongoing.
Mhm.
Very good. All right, thanks. Next question from Marvin Miller. For Tony Dorn, you did not mention either the floriculture summary nor the Census of Horticultural Specialties as another follow-up study to the Census of Agriculture. I just want to make sure these are both on your radar. Tony, you got those? You got floriculture and hort on your radar?
They're definitely on our radar, and in our same survey cycle that we've always had, the Census of Horticulture, the reference year for that will be 2024. The data collection will be in 2025, along with the other census follow-on, the total survey, the land ownership survey. Those will be the two follow-ons during that year. And of course, the floriculture crop summary, that'll pick up next year, just in the same cycle, for mostly annual cycle that it has all along.
And Lance, we did a few tweaks to the floriculture survey. I don't think we have it in our current notes because it's happened a little while back, but they were pretty important. Do you want to speak to that maybe?
Yeah, a couple of things there. We did expand our reporting on the annual floriculture here starting last year, and so that was expanded. More specifically, just to provide a little bit more detail on how the Census of Hort and the annual floriculture pair up in that reference year. We actually use the Census of Hort as the data collection instrument for the annual floriculture report. So we'll actually see a little bit different release time frame in 25 when that data is actually collected, referencing 24. And so you'll see that we'll actually, like we did last time, synchronize the publication of the Census of Hort and the annual floriculture publication. So it'll probably come out late in the year as opposed to the normal spring time frame.
Very good. Yes, floriculture and hort are very fun and very interesting, but also very challenging. Okay, next question. Dr. Rob Johansson. Let's see. Rob at the American Sugar. Does NASS survey harvested acres separately for sugar production versus seed cane? If not, how might NASS treat harvested acres for sugar production differently from seed cane? Lance, you want to start with that?
Yeah, we do actually ask it separately. And so that's how we delineate between the two estimates, is we actually collect it separately.
Do we publish separately?
We do.
Okay. Very good. Rob, I don't know if that covers it, but you can always jump back in the queue if we didn't get everything you were looking for there. I have a question from Mark Fate. Upon the WASI release at noontime, the access to the data sets and then there's a reference to an FAS download site is delayed from 5 to 20 minutes. Is access to the data via API more timely? Are there plans to improve the access timeliness via the downloads? And I guess I'll go to Paul for that. Paul Trupo.
Thanks for the question. Access via the API is no more expedient than access through downloading the report. So you're not losing any competitive advantage there. And we are looking at plans to investigate ways, technologies, and policy changes that would be required to speed up the release of the report. So our IT folks are looking at this, they're working on it, and hopefully we'll have something to report soon.
All right, very good. Thank you. From Kim Lovett, could a contact list, this is related to FSA, could a contact list of data-related staff at FSA be posted on the FSA website? Whenever I have questions about their data and data collection processes, the only way to reach out is through the communications office. Having a content-related contacts available would be quite helpful. And yeah, Tim.
Yep, I can take that. Thanks for the question, Ken. Hopefully you got my email I sent to you on that question already today. I think that's a great idea. It's not clear to me. I see that you're on the call again today, so welcome back. It's not clear exactly to me if you're talking about the public dashboards in Tableau that we were showing yesterday for dairy margin coverage and emergency relief programs, or if you're just talking data in general. But I think that's a great idea. I think that's something that we can do on the dashboards. We're going to start putting an icon on there that you can email for specific content related questions to those dashboards and the data that appears on those dashboards. Otherwise, your suggestion on a general contact list for data is absolutely something that we can do. So thank you for bringing that up.
Tim, just to follow up, since just curious, I know a lot of folks on this call would be very interested in the 578 data as it gets posted. Do you have a point of contact for that or plans for that?
For the acreage reporting data?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I can post that where we post that data and do it in that way. Obviously, we have a specialist on crop acreage reporting. I don't know that I want to give her email out on this call here today, right now, Joe. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
I have not communicated with her on that specifically on crop acreage reporting yet.
Fair enough, but that might be
we can get
might be the
contact
gist of
posted
this
there.
question. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. This question is from Sam Bartz. Thank you all for such informative presentations as it came from yesterday. I have a couple of questions about the 2024 Census of Aquaculture and Coding. So Travis, are you out there? Or Tony? First, is the Census of Aquaculture only done every 5 years? And is there increased interest in changing this to annually? Second, considering the increased interest in aquaculture data, both domestically and internationally in relation to trade, production, and in sciences and regulatory action, I was wondering if unique HS coding for aquaculture products is being researched and considered for easier data analysis. Again, thank you for all your time and your presentations. So, Tony, do you want to start or you want Travis to start?
We'll let Travis handle that one.
Okay.
So the question, Sam, on the.
You're a little faint, Travis.
Can you hear me? Thanks for the question, Sam. On the frequency of the report or the Census of Aquaculture, it's a follow-on process from our Census of Agriculture. And so that's how the sample is drawn for the Census of Aquaculture. So that's a 5-year process. Annually, we do the trout in catfish programs at NASS. So that those programs are on an annual basis. And the cost and the burden behind doing a census of aquaculture would be pretty complex. There has been interest expressed from aquaculture folks, but the response burden is a little too much on them. And so that's the part there. Yeah, more domestic and international in relations to trade. That's always increasing with production, the consumption on aquaculture products. As far as your coding, I'm not that familiar with that part to elaborate on that, to provide an answer back on that. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks.
Okay, and I think Joe talked some about already about HS coding and what that process looks like. So Joe, I don't know if you have anything else to add in this area for aquaculture. If not, we'll move on.
No, nothing here.
Okay. All right. I have another question. It was from Brad Fuller, and it was about the corn yields, and I think that very close to the question that came, the first question that we did. So I'm going to move on. Brad, if you don't feel like your question got addressed earlier, you can jump back in the queue, and we'll try to take that on. Next question is from Hussein Jawani. Yesterday, I heard that some of the data for the last 5 years is going to be revised. In quick stats, would we be able to view both the revised and unrevised data? And if so, how? Lance, since you were talking about that, do you want to lead out on that?
Yeah, so the short answer would be no. So, earlier we talked about some of the in-season estimates and how we track those in quick stats. But when we talk about revisions, we're talking about literally revising a specific estimate that was previously published. And so currently in quick stats, we don't maintain each of those iterations. Now, with that said, nationally, we do publish track records publications each spring. And in those, you would see the national tracking of each of those revised numbers as well. So not in quick stats currently, but nationally, that data does exist in the track records publications.
Okay, very good. And also some of the modernization work. Do you want to make any reference to that, Lance?
I mean, obviously, that's a whole topic in and of itself, I guess. But as we move through new ways of displaying the data, these are some of the things that we'll consider in developing those products to see what we can do to meet the needs.
Very good. Appreciate it. I have another question, very much like Brad's, again, on the corn yields. I think that we've touched on that. If you feel like that, you can jump back in line, but I'm going to move on from that one. For the USDA FAS Crop Explorer, there are no NDVI products for potatoes in Canada. Could this be added? Paul.
Thanks. I'm not an expert on this, but my team has told me that we generally monitor and cover the tradable commodities. So users can go directly to the NASA GIMS site, GIMMS site, and generate their own user-specific charts. Potatoes is not a crop that we're required to cover and include in the Crop Explorer because most vegetable crops have small fields that would be difficult for NDVI geospatial applications, or they'd be difficult for NDVI to monitor reliably around the world. In some cases, our geospatial tools, Gaddis and GLAM, geospatial applications could be used, but not as comprehensively with all the variables that are covered by Crop Explorer. So we do what we can.
Got it. All right. So you just need some satellite imagery. You're looking over Prince Edward Island. I think it's one big potato field, if I remember right. All right. Next question. Interesting. The Nebraska legislature is considered last fall it is likely to consider again this spring a bill in which the state of Nebraska would rely upon annual USDA data regarding producer costs, and commodity acreage, yield, and market prices for various commodities in order to create a multi-year rolling average of such data. Under the bill in the Nebraska legislature, the state of Nebraska would use these data in order to calculate each agricultural producer's property taxes due each year. Can USDA assure those of us in Nebraska that USDA's annual survey data regarding those agricultural inputs, sales prices, revenues, crop acreages, and any other necessary agricultural producer data will be consistent each year for the benefit of the state of Nebraska rolling average? Can USDA assure us that any revisions of data in later years will have a minimal impact on that rolling average? Wow, okay, so Tony, you've got prices, Lance, you've got the crop pieces. No reference to livestock or cattle on feed, but I don't know, Tony, Lance, which one of you want to go after it?
I can take a crack at it if you want, Tony. Kind of two components here. I guess I'll work in reverse in terms of assuring that the revisions won't have much impact. We can't do that because we have no idea in advance what revisions will be made. If we knew that, there wouldn't be any revisions because we'd get them. We would actually set those estimates the first time. And so all these revisions are always going to be driven by the latest available data that we have. And so once we see that, we're going to revise to what we think is the most accurate number based on that information. In terms of assuring that, the products are going to stay consistent year to year, generally, our programs do stay pretty consistent, but as we talked about in our session yesterday afternoon, we do review our program at least every 5 years. And so if there's a significant shift in any of the commodities, there could be a shift in our programs moving forward too. So I'd probably stop short of saying yes, we can assure it's going to be consistent in terms of what's available. Depending on what you're looking at, we'd always have to consider disclosure as one of the factors in the equation as well. But with that said, it tends to be very consistent year to year, but I can't quite assure it.
I think, in terms of thinking about revisions of that data, and I don't know how timely they're trying to use it, if they're starting with final, our data at the end of season, they probably could do some assessment in their own right, whether it was fit for use based on looking at track records, and we could help them with that. So, the real question is, well, how do you define a minimal impact? You could look back at our track record and how much we've revised after a certain point on key agricultural items. And, Lance, I guess one thing I would add here too is that it'd be pretty unlikely we'd stop estimating corn in Nebraska, right? But, what we might do with a, peas or lentils or a potato crop there or a popcorn, those are probably subject to, what our budget and stuff looks like. But, there's a lot of corn and soybeans in Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. It would depend somewhat on exactly what all's being factored in, as you mentioned, Joe. And just a slight caution on that, the track records are only available nationally.
Right.
And so specifically for Nebraska, it would take a little bit more digging to track that back. But we could certainly help with that. And at least you could get a taste of what's happened in the past. And then you can decide how good of indicator that is of the future.
Yeah.
It's usually pretty good.
One other thing I'll throw in, I don't know to the extent that they're using NASS data for agricultural inputs and such. If they're using farm cost and returns data, this is all subject to cooperation as well. Especially for very involved surveys like the ARMS survey, it's challenged to get cooperation. We do the very best that we can, but that state level data for ARMS data are a little bit less, are certainly less precise than the national level data. I don't know, Kelly or Tony, if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, maybe also, it just depends how aggregate or find the data that's being used for this purpose. For instance, like if you look at the overall prices paid and prices received indexes that we publish, those are usually a lot more stable than some of the smaller indexes. So if there's certain components to this legislation or anything, obviously those are a little more subject to wider revisions, wider changes, because they're smaller and have smaller measurements. So it just depends upon that and everything else, that we would have as far as how much we would buy. So like Lance said, ideally, we don't want any revisions. We'd like to publish the best right out of the gate, but things change. So we get additional data. There are other things that happens that cause revision to happen that we, have additional data and want to have the last final, most accurate number. So that's going to be consistent from what's happened in the past. There's no prediction of the future, but it could give a general idea of how much revisions there would be.
And we have a great state director in Nick Streff in our Nebraska Regional Field Office. And Nick would be a great point of contact, and we would be happy to be a part of any discussion to take a little deeper dive into both precision or sort of the data that folks might be looking at in the legislature, and have some discussion about fitness for use. Okay, we will move on. Great question. Rob again, can monthly NASS sugarcane mill surveys be consolidated by company, therefore lowering reporting burden? Lance?
Yeah, we'd be happy to talk more about that. Honestly, I thought we had those pretty much consolidated by company, but if there's any additional work we need to do in that area, reach out. I'll be happy to work with you to see what we can do.
Similarly, we've done a fair bit of that work in really large grain handling facilities, other larger entities, to consolidate reporting and make sure that we're making it easy for them, and also ensuring the best data that we can possibly collect. Nathan Watermeyer, what updates can you provide on Cropland Cross? Currently, it is not displaying data. When will this app service be running? I don't know if I have anybody on the panel from our research and development division supporting it. Cropland Cross, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you, but we will get one, and it should be running. So we'll take that one. We'll take that one back. Also from Nathan, have any of the agencies considered packaging and making data available through other known platforms such as the Snowflake Marketplace? Anybody?
Joe, I'm not familiar with Snowflake Marketplace in particular, but we do try to make as much of our data as possible available through the Ag Data Commons. So that's a good source for USDA data widely. And I know agencies are working on implementing new public access task force or public access regulations, requirements that will hopefully make access a little more easy and straightforward for folks, data that is publicly available.
A lot of agencies also use data.gov to document the data they have available. So Nathan, we do not, I'll say that. This may be a duplicate, Julie, but it sounds a little bit different to me. So could EIA give an update on whether they are going to start asking RD producers their feedstock inventory levels on their monthly survey? And I know Joe's already talked about HS codes, so.
Right, I think that was trade. I think these are stocks.
Yeah.
So yes, we know that is of interest, and our survey forms are on a 3-year cycle. We just actually went through a clearance, so we just we just started, the beginning of the 3-year process. So in 2026 will be the next time we can make changes to survey forms. And, so we know that that is of interest, and we're, we have to get, EIA management and then OMB to agree to these sorts of changes. So that's a process. Whether we'll be able to do it or not, I really can't say right now, but we understand it's of importance.
Okay, so it's something you'll take under consideration as you come up for docket renewal.
Correct.
Okay. This is from Mr. Pareto. I represent a sugar cane processor. We are required to report on a monthly basis on the estimated production for the current fiscal year. After we are finished processing, normally in January, we are still required to report an estimate at that point is the same data. Could consideration be given to drop the required reporting after final production for a year that has been finalized?
Yeah, again, much like the consolidation issue, be happy to discuss that further. Currently, we kind of have a process we use on some surveys where we'll actually ask, is harvest complete? And given a yes, that gives us an indication that we don't need to, repeat in future months. So definitely something we can talk about and look into.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Travis, has there been any thought to moving cattle on feed reports from the 3 p.m. time slot to 12 noon, similar to crop production? Travis?
Good question, Austin. We have done that, and unfortunately, the industry has not appreciated the release of cattle on feed at noon, and they have requested NASS to keep the cattle on feed released at 3 p.m. Since during the holiday time frame where we have done a noon release, and it has not been received well. So the Cattlemen's Association and others have requested NASS keep the report to a 3 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you for the question.
Okay, Travis, you're still coming in a little faint, but what I heard was that we've had discussions about 12 noon, and 3 p.m. is at least by the general consensus is stay at 3 p.m. for livestock reports, both for cattle on feed and for hogs and pigs. All right. For the quick stats, this is from Benjamin Diamond. For the quick stats bulk download files on nass.usda /datasets, could the data in the qs.crops 20, the daily one, be divided into separate crops, that is corn, soy, wheat, cotton, sorghum, and or separate years?
Well, I mean, technically, yes, it could be, but that's a very manual process we're doing right now. And so obviously the goal is to keep it very simple. Probably a better way to approach this would be, again, to refer back to the modernization efforts that are underway. We're looking to hopefully make it easier to access information, not only specifically, but in bulk type formats. And so we'll definitely make sure this is on our list of things that we consider as we continue to work through our new dissemination processes.
Okay. Next question is, when will the 2022 Ag Census microdata be available in the data lab? And Tony, if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this one since it's directly in my portfolio. I have a staff that, and Marissa helps us lead this, that handles a lot of the requests for privileged access to work with record level Ag Census data. And so for qualified researchers, we will establish a process where they can go in and examine things on the census microdata. Our first order of business is publishing the Census of Agriculture in early 2024. And when we do that in early 2024, and we expect right now, given continued funding, that will release at the Ag Outlook or just before the Ag Outlook Forum. I think the date is the February 13. Is that right, Tony? 12, 13? I can't remember what it is. it's on the Ag Statistics Board calendar as well. But then we have a whole series of releases right after that, and our staff need to be focused on getting those tabulations out. We have tabulations for congressional districts, tabulations on race, ethnicity, and gender, for example, and many others. And as soon as those are completed, that's when we'll move the census microdata out, and we'll make available additional special tabulations and allow folks to get in and start using the 2022 Census of Agriculture data. Basically, we have to make sure that we can get our own data out the door, and then we can really work with researchers on the newer data set. Tony, anything to add?
No, I won't plant a flag for a deadline, so no, that's perfectly fine. But I know everyone's working hard. We'll work as hard as they can to get out as soon as they can for data users.
Very good. All right. This is from Chris Eggerman. With NASS planning to review planted acreage for corn, soybeans, and other crops in August next year, would it be possible for FSA to release certified acreage data before the NASS Ag August crop production report to help us anticipate what adjustments NASS might make? I understand that FSA data for spring planted crops may not be complete enough to be useful before August 1st, but having August 1st data a few days before the NASS report would be very helpful. Before I go to my friends at FSA, I think I want to go to Lance. Lance.
Yeah, back when this first started becoming available publicly on the website, there was a lot of conversation between NASS and FSA as to what the most appropriate time frame would be. And the conclusion we came to collectively that it was probably best for NASS to get the estimates out there before some of the supporting data were available out there. We certainly could renew that conversation, but I don't know that anything's really changed. I think there's some risks associated with, in a sense, putting out partial data, which is in a way what we would be doing as USDA, putting out an input to one component of the forecast that we're publishing for the complete crop. And so I can see some advantage on one side, but I can see a lot of advantage the other way as well. So those would be my comments. Just know that was very strategic when it was stood up several years ago. And so Tim, I'll let you.
Yeah.
I would just have to say I agree, Lance. We'd be happy to talk with you guys further on that, but I think that was done for a reason, and I'm not sure that there's a new reason to change it, but we'd be happy to talk about that.
Okay, very good. And I do want to highlight, I think we've looked at this for a while, and we've actually moved up corn and soybeans. It used to be for the October report. We moved it to September. And FSA has gotten better and better, I think. There may be a year when this isn't possible, but they've gotten better and better about processing faster, and we've feel pretty comfortable about a data set that size. There's always a few odd things, and we feel pretty good about what we can see by just before the August crop report. And so I think that will help data users to incorporate that in August is good for everybody if we can. So that's what we're going to attempt to do.
Yeah, Joe, and just real quick, this might be a good point to just reiterate that in adding this review for corn and soybeans and a few of the other crops in August, please note in there that we also said we're leaving the September window there for now. And so we do plan to consider updates in August and September for several of the crops, including corn and soybeans. And so that is intentional, because, we're moving up pretty early, pretty quickly here. And B, as Joe just mentioned, some years when planting is delayed, that has an impact on reporting progress as well. And so that is intentional. Right now, there will be 2 opportunities for those crops in August and September. And if we decide to, make any changes to that moving forward, we'll be very clear about that again.
All right, appreciate it. All right, this is a follow-up, and so Mark and you may want to get tuned back in here. Still, this is from Bedfeller. Still a little perplexed with the national corn yield coming out in May at 181.5 bushels per acre, which is almost 5 bushels per acre greater than anything we have ever seen. Again, with the expansion of corn acreage occurring in the Western Corn Belt, which are not big yielding states like the 3 I states, and weather that seems a bit more extreme, this seems like a bit of a stretch to begin the marketing year. In addition, this is very early information which will be adjusted as we move deeper into the marketing year, tends to cast a negative price implication across this commodity using such a monster yield to begin our year.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I'd say not sure what else I can say at this point. Point taken. And as Mike said, these estimates are always based on the best information available at the time. And this has been a topic of discussion in Omaha and at many other data users meetings. And I'm not sure there's a lot more that we can say right now. But I'll turn it over to Mike again if he has anything else to.
It's a valid question, and I like the debate, and I'm certainly always open, Jerry and Brad, to ideas. I invite you to send those ideas, but I would also just point out the corn yield in the U.S., the national yield, is not stationary. The mean is not constant over time. So if you look back the last 40 plus years of data, it's more often than not the yield is in record. Probably 70% of the time is a number I have in my head that may be incorrect. So, and then you come along like a year like 2004, 2014, and you surpass the prior national record by whatever, 5% on average. So just keep that in mind. We're trying to provide an objective starting point. And, sometimes the weather, you could have a stretch of bad years. You think that weather is an unbiased coin. It's not. That's not how it works. So that's all I will say about that.
All right, thanks for the additional discussion. Let's see. Next question I have in front of me. Mike Sheets, you just answered a question, and I know you typed an answer. Can you maybe share with folks what the question was and the answer? Because it got past me. I don't see it anymore.
Yeah, Joe, they were asking if is there any talk about mandating poultry reporting similar to beef and pork? And if that's going to happen, that would have to follow the same legislative route. And I've not heard any talk out there of anybody initiating anything like that. So that would be what we'd expect. We'd have to go normally from the industry groups to the legislators and then down to us. So, but that's not something we would initiate in AMS.
Okay, got it. I, believe it or not, do not have any questions in my queue at the moment. I can't believe that. So I'm pitching for questions. I can't believe this group wouldn't have another question in them. Well, if I don't get some questions, I'm going to have Lance start playing the banjo or something. Lance, can you play the banjo?
I sure could give it a shot, but you're gonna have to sing.
We'll be full of questions in no time if under those conditions.
Certainly would if we start.
Well,
there we go.
All right. Oh, look at that. Just like fired in here. This is from Lincoln Harrington. Can you walk us through your process for estimating ethanol in early crop year WASDs?
Yeah, and this is Mike Jewison question.
All right, Mike,
shed some light on that.
Great question. Obviously, it's based on several assumptions. I think I've outlined this before, but I'll go through it again. In particular, assumptions for gasoline consumption in the U.S., as well as a view on trade, and putting that together, looking at what it would mean for corn and sorghum. And I would also note that we rely heavily on what EIA reports for MoGas forecasts, motor gasoline consumption forecasts.
Okay. Tony, coming your way. Is there an update or specifics on the timeline for NASS modernization in regards to moving away from quick stats?
All right, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I know we talked about our modernization in the earlier presentation. We showed what was there. I think we gave a hint of what's coming up too. You know, looking at the rest of this year, we're trying to finish up the last, you know, the livestock economics and crops. That's really what we're working on. We're working through those and everything before we go on to poultry and census products and fruit and vegetables. Those are coming up later too. So you know, this year we're really finishing up. We have, you know, so many releases, and there's, once we get into the details, you can see how much data we have. There's a lot of interest in our data. So it's a lot to make sure we get in or incorporate it into the new system the best way possible. So we're working through our major groups of economics and livestock and crops for the rest of the year. So I don't have, you know, I could go through the details and everything, but those schedules kind of change depending on needs and everything. But that's really where we're at for the rest of the year, and we're going to, you know, keep progressing as fast as we can on those.
I think you're going to see a number of, fair to say, you're going to see a number of things in that new format. And also one of the things we're pushing on is the ability for to have better search capability for sort of ad hoc searches. And so those are not terribly far away, and we'll certainly be communicating those on our website, right? Marvin, I see you started to ask a question, but I only got the first part that says Joe. So, and then I'm going to move down to Alan Brugler. There are several soybean crush plants coming online, including at least 2 this fall and several in 2024. How does the World Board WASDE handle projected crush from those plants? Mark?
Good question for Joanna.
That's what I thought.
She should be here to shed some light on that.
Yes, I'm here. So we are aware of the plants that are online. Look at news reports and talk to our contacts and make sure that they're still, you know, coming online and on time. And then, but then on the other side, we look at demand and you see how much demand there is for, you know, oil coming out of those plants. And so, yes, we're looking at overall capacity, but we're also looking at utilization based off of what we expect demand to be in the product.
Okay, thanks for that. Your audio wasn't so great, but what I think I heard is that you've got your antenna up and you're well aware of those that are coming online, and you're also thinking about demand and stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Now I see Marvin's question. Can you comment briefly on about any interaction the data agencies have as a result of pending Farm Bill, and whether its delay might impact anything? That's a great question. I'll go around the horn. Gosh, Tim, I think I'll start with you if that's okay. Just thinking about data.
Yeah, I think it absolutely does have an impact. The lack of Farm Bill will have an impact on farm service agencies and some of our programs' ability to operate as that expires. Interaction between different data agencies, it has increased recently, not related specifically to Farm Bill, which is your question, Marvin, but in the emergency relief programs, we've been working closely with RMA and in sucking in crop insurance data and SBIs in order to pre-populate applications and things like that. So I would say between agencies and USDA, the data sharing is trending upwards. It's increasing. Specifically for Farm Service Agency, as we move to the department's EDAP platform, a more modern data platform, we are hoping that that is able to increase. We're able to leverage data sets across agencies. I think that's probably all I have, Joe. Certainly the pending Farm Bill is troubling for us.
Kelly, how about you? Any comment about the pending farm bill and whether its delay might impact anything for ERS or your ability to affect some work that you have ongoing.
Yeah, not a lot. I was trying to think if there would be any, we don't administer programs. Rather, we're doing analysis to inform programs. So I don't think we anticipate that there will be any delays in release of our products as a result of farm bill delays. But yeah, so not anything that's coming to mind.
I think I would offer from a NASS perspective, and I'll have my counterparts jump in here too, is that, and I'm not a farm bill expert for sure, but a number of farm bill program provisions change and different NASS data become very much more important if there is no farm bill. So that would be not directly impacting NASS, but it would certainly change how some folks maybe look or use some NASS data. We also have relationships with many other USDA agencies. Some of those relationships to complete certain surveys or support certain survey activity is funded through Farm Bill provisions. And so, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but some of those could be affected in terms of the funding stream and could make a difference. Obviously, more broadly, if there's any a lack of funding in terms of an appropriation or something like for all agencies, we'll follow shutdown procedures and all that sort of stuff. That's a little different discussion. We'll do if we can collect the data, we'll have we'll be able to produce reports, and so those sorts of things you can look back to sort of how we dealt with that a couple of years ago when there was a shutdown, just more broadly. Travis, Lance, Tony, anything to add there? Any of our other agencies, Michael at AMS, do you have any comment you want to share on?
The only thing I'm familiar with in the last farm bill, we had the Organic Data Initiative, which gave us money to expand organic data reporting. That's been in several farm bills. We have not heard whether or not that will be in this one. Fully expect it to be. And then the other thing was the establishment of the carcass training centers, which has been ongoing to help promote the work we do with the CME. That had no money associated with it. So unless somebody moves to remove that still stands. So other than that, haven't heard anything. When it comes to like livestock reporting and that, I believe one of the senators talked about that would not be in the farm bill itself, that they would look at that separately. So otherwise, we've not heard anything.
Okay. And Paul, do you have anything to add? Paul Trudeau?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to add to that.
All right, very good. We'll consider that question to be answered. Could crop progress statistics be added for other countries in the FAS Crop Explorer? Paul?
I think I'd like to defer this one to one of our team members, Ron France, who I believe is online, available to answer.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Yeah, that's a good question. Crop Explorer, as it exists today, does not include any crop progress statistics. Those are maintained by individual regional analysts. However, Crop Explorer is used to monitor crop conditions, such as NDVI. Those are the greenness values of the crop, precipitation data, and other agro-climatological sources of data that can be found there. Very easy to search by either commodity or by country in Crop Explorer. We've done a lot of work through our contractors to help improve that website and have launched what we call Commodity Explorer. So you can actually search by commodity, and hopefully that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let me make sure I mark that one. Has there been any, this is for Karen Braun, has there been any improvement over the last year or so on the quality and availability of grain and oilseed data out of Ukraine? How about Russia? I don't know. both Paul
Well,
and Mark.
I'll say a couple words. I think Mark Simone might be available to answer this. But as I mentioned yesterday, we published 26 gain reports out of Ukraine since the war began. We have a handful of Ukrainian local staff working and reporting using their contacts. The production data coming out heavily out of Russia primarily uses geospatial tools and satellite imagery. So whether or not it has improved or not, I can't say, but I'll defer if Mark has something he'd like to say about this.
Thank you, Paul. Improvements, kind of an interesting phrase, given that the war's been going on. I characterize it more as challenging with regard to trade data, in particular, Russia's the export data starting in beginning of 2022 was no longer available from the Russian government. Used alternative sources, but there are limitations in regard, especially in regard to overland trade. For Ukraine, yeah, I mean, when the Black Sea Grain Initiative, that actually improved the latency and the granularity of the data. But as you may know, the Black Sea Grain Initiative is no longer around. So here we are, and yeah, there are challenges, and that happens when you have this kind of a war right now. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that. Got a comment from Jerry Goodell saying, where are all the livestock report questions of the past? They can't be all that good on the animal side. So so if you all have some questions about the livestock, either for Travis or Michael Sheets, well, you know, you should get them in here while we have a couple minutes left. Thanks for the comment, Jerry. Is there, this is from Karen Brown also, is there any increased intelligence on Chinese corn stocks? USDA shows that they have been largely consistent for the past few years, but Chinese corn prices and China's recent participation in global trade could suggest otherwise.
Well, if that falls to FAS, I would like to defer that to Lindsay Kuberka, who our senior director in FAS, if she's online and available. We all know how challenging it is to get any data out of China, and it may be more challenging nowadays than any time in the past.
I'm here, but I'm wondering if Mike is maybe better suited to answer this. Mike, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. Great question. Unfortunately, the answer is I wish that this, in a perfect world, this would be an item that would be publicly reported, but unfortunately, it's not. So, I leave it to my NASS colleagues because, you know, if you go back in time, they were the ones that helped China with the first ag census. So I'm holding out hope that NASS can go back and help China with their grain stocking operation. So, great, Joe and Lance. So.
Well, thanks, Mike. You're going a long way to try to throw it back to us. It is true that long ago, several of us worked with National Bureau of Statistics. Although even then, the grain stocks was a different animal than, or treated much differently than other items. So
I think there has to be a desire for help.
yeah, there you go. Okay, from Ben Diamond, could crop area yield an acres by province/state be added to the FAS Crop Explorer?
Ron Franz, you want to take that one, please?
There we go. Sure, Paul. Thanks for the question. No, Crop Explorer is really just meant for crop condition analysis. Our official statistics are maintained in USDA's PS&D online database, And those are at the state or country level, not at the provincial level. So that's not something we could add to Crop Explorer at this time. There is a lot of provincial level data that our analysts utilize, but it's not something that we publish.
Okay. I have a question from Jerry. Oh, here we go. Now I understand the question better. I was a little perplexed for a moment. The impact of last summer's wet wheat harvest hasn't been fully revealed in China. Mark Jekanowski, I don't know if you want Mark to offer comment. Mark Simone.
Mark, yeah, he's welcome to weigh in. Not sure if there's really a question there, or if it's more of a statement, but
Kind of a
Mark,
statement.
if you want to add anything to that?
We did reduce China's wheat production to account for that. We also increased the feed use in recognition of the degradation of wheat quality for milling purposes, more feed. There was China's State Statistical Bureau provided a mid-year production estimate. And that's what we based our last reduction on. So will it be another one forthcoming? China's State Statistical Bureau does another final update for the 23-24 crop year, I believe in mid-December. So we'll see it then, and we'll take it into account. So we'll see.
All right, appreciate that, Mark.
Mhm.
So this is a follow-up from Jessica Spreitzer on the NASS modernization, and I think I can answer this. As a follow-up, how long can us avid QuickStats users expect to still be able to use the system after all products are transitioned to the new format? Well, Jessica, good news if you're an avid QuickStats user. I think QuickStats will be available for some period of time. We will be very careful about that transition. We know that a lot of folks are dependent upon it. And we will be both training to the 2B state and working with data users. So no need to start worrying about those queries just yet. And we'll make sure and bring folks along when we're at that point. We realize that we need to get more, we got to get everything sort of transferred over before we would do very much with QuickStats. So thanks for that. Anything to add there, Tony? No? I have in my hand the last question. The last question. This is from Ryan Nielsen. So you're the winner of the last question. This question is for EIA if they are available. The October WASDE had raised soy oils biofuel draw by 300 million pounds to a record 12.8 billion, nearly 50% of domestic B&O use. The BO use. As the industry grows, can we expect to see the biodiesel renewable diesel production in the weekly petroleum status report or a similar weekly/monthly report? Furthermore, the biodiesel graphics on EIA's website show BO representing 68% of feedstocks used for biodiesel, but is dated 2021. Can we get that breakdown on a monthly or more regular schedule? And Julie, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm here. Right now we don't have any intention of putting it on the weekly. And again, that goes to our whole 3-year cycle. So, that can be taken under advisement. The biodiesel graphics on EIA's website. Okay, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Sounds like there's some graphics. So that may be something you want to take back and we can address
Right.
in our written responses and such. So,
Perfect.
but
Thank you.
all right, very good. Thank you very much for the question. Before we close out, I have a couple of comments, and I think we want to make sure and direct you to the breakout sessions. I want to advertise those. RMA is going to be talking about their data availability, and of course ERS and the feed grains database. I strongly encourage you to take part in one or via tape by recording both of them. Looks like that there's some stuff in the chat where there's going to be the links are being shared there, so that's a good thing. There we go. There's the second session from Vincent. Very good. All right. Well, I have a couple comments. I just want to thank everybody. You know, I always find this to be, maybe it's weird, but I find this to be very fun and very informative. It helps us think, it helps me think about our program, what we need to do, and just frankly to hear from our data users. And so really appreciate your willingness to all the panelists to share their updates of their program and their work. And I want to really thank our attendees. You are important to us, and we value your input. And we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of the exchange. So I really do appreciate that. I want to make sure and thank Marissa River. Marissa and Vincent take care of everything in the background, and hopefully you find everything to run smoothly and you don't really notice things going on, and that's because of their very fine work. So I appreciate them very much. I always make this pitch, but it's ever important. You that use data need to understand, and I'm sure you do, that getting farmers and ranchers to report to us at NASS is really very important. We need to make our case every single day for their time and their attention to give very proprietary information to us for both farmers and agribusinesses. Obviously, when we think about, we want to be efficient stewards of funds. And so if we can get respondents to respond to us and respond to us online, that's the best. We have online presence really for almost all of our surveys, or all of them, actually. But, you know, we want to make sure and get that online response, and we need your help to get that out. Moreover, we need you to talk to those that provide data to let them understand the linkage between, if you're offering advice to them, or, you know, you're an input supplier, or a marketer helping to do marketing and such, that folks understand that it takes data, it takes information to really make a marketplace and to make these things work, and we're dependent upon it. Thanks again for the excellent turnout. We are listening and we value your input. With your help, we'll continue to do what we need to do to improve USDA's and Commerce Department and at EIA, our data products and services. You're going to get an evaluation soon from Marissa. Please give us your feedback. And obviously, we welcome your suggestions for improvement and ideas for future breakout sessions. So I hope we see you out there at the breakout sessions in just a couple of minutes. And with that, we'll bring this to a close. Thank you, and thank you all. Really appreciate it.